Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about why you should be excited for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, coming exclusively to Nintendo Switch 2 on September 17th of this year, 2026. So I'm going to be going at this video from two different angles, for those who haven't played a Fire Emblem game before, and for those who have played Fire Emblem before. But I'll just say that if you are a fan of Fire Emblem Three Houses, you're probably going to be a big fan of Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, because in a lot of ways it appears to be a sequel of sorts that's expanding upon that core gameplay there. But to explain what Fire Emblem is about, technically what Fire Emblem is a tactical RPG. So it's a role-playing game, and you're going to have these levels or missions where you engage against other armies, and you have like a field where you can control the movement of your different units. You will tell one character to move a certain amount of spots, and depending on the character's type, they can move in a certain ways, and we'll also have different attack types and ranges as well, and there is a rock, paper, scissors mechanic that's been expanded upon, and there's different abilities and things that pile on top of that, but that is kind of like the core idea. You could have like a set of paladins, you could have archers, you could have mages, you could have warriors, people that use hammers or axes, people that use bows, people that have big shields, people that have long swords or spears. There are all sorts of different fantasy and medieval archetypes here that lead to all sorts of different combinations, and as you progress throughout the game, you'll have these different characters that have their own personalities, their own dialogues, that will level up throughout the game and can expand and grow and reach new classes and have different abilities. And of course, these connections between the characters can also build, leading to even more potential on the battlefield, but also implications with the story, and even some romance if you choose to get that far. But what's also kind of cool about the Fire Emblem series is it does have permadeath, and so on the battlefield, if someone dies, they're dead, for good. And that certainly raises the stakes, it makes things a lot more interesting, and will impact the story moving forward as well. Now, Fire Emblem does have accessibility options. You can choose to not play with permadeath, so if you're afraid of that, if you don't want to lose your characters, if you don't want that risk, that stress, that pressure, you can turn it off. Or there's a middle ground with more recent Fire Emblem games where you have the option to sort of rewind things and try things slightly differently, perhaps to get a better outcome on the battlefield, not just in terms of helping people to survive, but also maybe just finding a way to do things a bit more efficiently or what have you. But to better understand Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, I think we should take a look at Fire Emblem Three Houses, because as I said, this does appear to be very much a sequel to Three Houses, and looking at Three Houses, I think we can get a really good understanding of what to expect here. And Three Houses, to me, is maybe the best Fire Emblem game. I haven't played every single Fire Emblem game, but Three Houses personally is my favorite, and it is the most ambitious in this series up to this point. And so what Fire Emblem Three Houses brings in is a variety of different cool stuff. So, for example, it's not just these missions where you engage in these battles, but also there is the monastery, which is this giant hub area it's pretty expansive. It's basically a combination of a church, a school with dorms, a battlefield, a training ground, all in one. It's kind of like exploring Hogwarts a little bit. And what's cool about this experience is that you can explore around, go to different people's rooms, talk to them, or find them training around elsewhere, or see what they're doing at the church, or in the dining hall, or in the study, or the barracks, or out in the marketplace. You can engage with these characters, you can have tea time with these characters. In a little bit of a way, it's kind of like a dating sim as well. So Fire Emblem is a tactical RPG that has a dating element to it, which can be very interesting, which is also optional, by the way. So if you're not into that, you don't really have to dive into that, but you do have that choice. And there's a lot of rewards to be found by exploring around these characters. And it's not just dating, by the way, it's just befriending people, getting to know them, and recruiting them onto your side, and building up that relationship, and learning more about them and the world. But Three Houses also gives you the opportunity to kind of speed through this stuff and just get to the battles and auto-level up. So there is a lot of flexibility there. If certain elements of Fire Emblem Three Houses doesn't appeal to you, it can be streamlined. But I really did enjoy the monastery element of Three Houses. I also liked that there were different minigames involved as well. And from what we can tell of Fortune's Weave, it appears to have something very similar, exploration around this city that's housing the Colosseum battles. Something I haven't mentioned yet about Three Houses is just the combat. I actually really liked how combat worked in Three Houses. You have the gambit options where you can send large groups of enemies to help out some of your individual stronger units. And it's really cool visually how you see things from one perspective from almost like a bird's eye view, so you can move around the units and tell them where to go, but then things do zoom in, you see the environment fully rendered in 3D, detailed visuals. It's a seamless transition, you see the battle happening, and it looks pretty cool. It's certainly fun to kind of see this happening there. And a lot of characters have some pretty epic, awesome specials, so it definitely gets interesting, and when you account for the story stuff that happens throughout the campaign as well, and during the skirmishes, it makes things even more intense. But perhaps one of the most special things about 3 houses specifically is the fact that there are 3 different houses you can choose from, and this will impact the story and who you work with throughout your campaign. Yeah, you can recruit different people and mix things up, but it has significant impacts on the story and who you work with, at least to start, and there are choices you make throughout the adventure that can further deviate the story. And then when you also account for the relationships you build and who you choose to be your close confidants or allies or even your lover, that can have even further implications to what happens and the ending, and also just reminding you that if someone dies, that will have its own impacts as well, of course. And so now thinking about Fortune's Weave is essentially building off of 3 houses. It's no longer 3 you choose from now, but 4 different champions you choose to follow, and they're going to have their own adventures, and it's going to impact things in a similar way to what we saw in 3 houses. And so if you're a fan of 3 houses, you're probably going to be a big fan of Fortune's Weave. It does feel like a sequel in a lot of ways. This kingdom in Fortune's Weave was referenced in 3 houses, although this does appear to be many years into the future, and we've seen the goddess Sothis, who's a little kid, in 3 houses, but in Fortune's Weave, she's a full-grown woman, and given that she's a goddess, this probably means many, many years and not just like a decade or 2. And so there may be further connections to find in Fortune's Weave relating to 3 houses, so if you're curious about the story and different things that happened, there can be connections there which would make things interesting. But beyond there being an additional story campaign to go through in Fortune's Weave in comparison to 3 houses, is there anything else new about this that makes this perhaps more compelling than 3 houses? Well, visually, this game is certainly taking a step up. It's a significant leap over what we saw from 3 houses here. They're clearly taking better advantage of the Switch 2 hardware. I'm not here trying to argue like Fortune's Weave is one of the best looking Switch 2 games. It's not, but it's certainly doing a better job, and it's looking clean, it's looking polished, and it's going to be nice to see all these different fights and the environments and the moments between these different characters, for sure. Some things I have noticed, though, about this game that are pretty exciting. They did mention in the trailer how you can go out beyond the walls of the encampment around the Colosseum and do a lot of training there, and so things seem expansive from that way, and also let me mention that similar to the monastery in 3 houses, it seems like we're going to have a big hub area to explore around the Colosseum as well, so we're still going to have that exploration element and that ability to interact with characters and do all these different mini games and dialogues and such that can lead to all sorts of different fun possibilities there. But something else I noticed is that there is this character that's actually collecting a chest in a cave. And it seems to be the case that we may be seeing the return of something we saw in a prior Fire Emblem game, Shadows of Valentia, where there was dungeon crawling. And so in Fortune's Weave, it looks like there's going to be dungeon crawling as well, where we're going to be able to go into caves or different tombs or dungeons and explore around, find different enemies to fight them or find treasure. And so the exploration element in Fortune's Weave could be taking things to a greater level than we saw in 3 houses, and I think that's actually pretty exciting to me. And so basically, if you loved 3 houses, I think Fortune's Weave is definitely something to go for. It seems to be expanding upon what they established with that game, but just doing it bigger and better. And if you're new to the Fire Emblem series, or you haven't tried one before, 3 houses was fire, and there's going to be more of that this time around, it looks like, with more exploration, with tons of characters to interact with. I'm sure that dating romance element will still be there. Lots of potential different story stuff, cool fights with great tactical RPG mechanics. And it will be done in a way where if you are looking for less of a challenge and you don't want people to die, you can do that. Or if you want that challenge, you want that stress, you want that permadeath, you can have that too. I remember in 2019 when 3 Houses came out, it was my personal game of the year back in 2019. So considering that, I'm actually very excited to play Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. I think we're in for a really good one here. Oh, just let me say one more thing. The music in the trailer sounded really epic. So I'm just getting more invested into this one. I think it is going to be a really good time. People are probably sleeping on this one a little bit, and I kind of understand why, because maybe it didn't stand out too much in the direct, but this is a quality series. This is following up one of the best games in this series, and because it's now on the Nintendo Switch 2, it's going to be all the more better. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.